Dear devotees, we are continuing with our discussion on integrity. This is part 2. So the next section is called Three Selves in One. So we may say that each of us is a composite of three selves. The public self, our public image and persona. The private self, what we do in our private world of family and close associates, when we let our hair down, and our deep secret self, our inner self, where we can examine the scripts of our lives, our motivations, tendencies, habits, rooted in our genetic coding, our environment, our social conditioning, and our desires. Integrity arises or does not arise from that deep self or secret self. So most people will try to have their influence through the outside-in approach based on their public selves. However, people who are highly effective, they exercise influence through an inside-out approach based on their secret selves or their innermost self. If you reveal authentically who you are deep down, people will learn to trust you for your genuineness. As you come to know yourself better, and become open to influence at the private and secret levels, you're in a better position to also influence others, because they will sense that you are open to influence, you are open to feedback, and then they will be more open to you. One of the main reasons why you may have more influence with others is that you know yourself. And one of the Greek philosophers said, "Know thyself, control thyself, and give thyself." And there is also, we can say that there is a power in that sequence. First you know yourself, then you know that you cannot control your mind, for example, and senses, and you need to control yourself, and then you can serve others and give yourself. For example, suppose I hear a rumor that you are saying and doing things that hurt me. By exercising self-knowledge, I might say to myself, now before you overreact to this news, remember that you have this paranoid tendency to think people are against you. Don't interpret what people are saying in terms of that paranoia. Instead, go to them and get additional data. Now notice what happens when I take into account my paranoid tendency and get additional data. I often find that my fears are unfounded. And if I have integrity, I can say I'm very upset, but I'm trying to deal with this in a responsible way, and not overreact emotionally. I'm taking responsibility for myself. I'm using self-knowledge. I'm attacking you on the basis of a rumor. Thus, when you and I interact, I can allow you to influence me. One famous psychologist said that when we feel that our internal congruency is disturbed, we use various psychological defenses such as denial, intellectualization, rationalizations, or projection. Projection happens when I project my own motivations onto other people. We judge others by their behavior, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. And this is not a fair way to judge. Once there was an experiment in the United States where researchers performed a psychological dissonance study on a group of people to identify what defense mechanisms they tend to use when push comes to shove in their lives. They identified those who used intellectualization as a defense mechanism, those who use rationalizations, those who use denial, and those who use projection. So they were put into groups of people of the same ilk, then gave tasks to perform. So one defense mechanism is intellectualization. You can imagine that this group is maybe a group of academics who have chosen their profession partly because it was safe. So you can escape into your mind and into theoretical abstractions. So now if you give something to this group, they may actually be stuck because of the paralysis of analysis. Then in another room you can have a projection group, and they are trying to transfer their own motivations onto each other. They got into blaming each other, and they got bogged down too. Then the people in the denial group couldn't move forward either, because everyone was saying, oh no, that's not what the assignment means. They don't really want us to do that. So this experiment teaches us the importance of examining our own motives and methods for dealing with hard problems. I was reminded of how easy it is to fall into the trap of intellectualizing away our own responsibility for our own life. And you may be using different other defense mechanisms to fall into the same trap. Our influence with others can increase only to the degree with which we have internal and external congruency. There was two friends, and one friend offended the other person deeply. And then one who offended the other, he sincerely apologized. And the other said, I can tell you how much I admire your sincere apology. But how did you come to the point to be able to do that? And he said, I had to go deep within myself and carry on a personal dialogue. I carried on the dialogue to the point where I had enough self-knowledge that I could ask myself, what am I going to obey, my ego or my conscience? And then he said, I decided to obey my conscience. So this is wonderful. this is wonderful, like a little compass that when you make decisions, you ask yourself, am I going to obey my false ego or this inner voice, inner compass that is telling me what is right and what is wrong, or conscience? So this first person was a conscious, directed person, and if he gets into a battle with his false ego, he will always choose conscience, to listen to conscience, because he has done this often. He was practicing. So listening to his conscience has become like an ingrained habit for him. And this man has great influence with others because of his integrity. So now you can see why we were discussing these things about these test groups. It's all related to the integrity that we are discussing here. Many people have an internal dialogue, but they lack the courage to confess an error or to apologize or make the change in public. Courage is also a function of integrity. If we do not cultivate integrity over time, we will not have the courage to confess mistakes and correct course. Now let us look at some fruits of integrity. Integrity produces unquestionable benefits in our life. One child of integrity is wisdom. If your security comes from within, you simply have better judgment. You are not in an overreactive state. You don't dichotomize. You don't catastrophize. You are not extreme. You have better overall life balance. With wisdom, you see things in correct perspective and proportion. You don't overreact or underreact. You suit the action to the word to the action, as Shakespeare wrote, and we can say, in other words, you walk your talk. A second child of integrity is the abundance mentality. When you get security from within, you are not in a constant state of comparison from without. Therefore, you can have an abundance mindset toward life. You stop worrying about others getting more credit or having more success in life. You see life as an ever-enlarging cornucopia of resources that gets larger and larger. As Hamlet said, Prince Hamlet, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Now, this is not an absolute statement. I don't agree with this. Actually, one has to be able to discriminate, according to Bhagavad Gita, what is right and what is wrong. In the same way, if you look for scarcity, that's what you will get. If you look for the abundant, perhaps hidden resources all around you, you will be able to leverage these resources. A third child of integrity is synergy. When your security is not tied up with what other people think of you, you can work with them to come up with better ideas in a spirit of win-win. You can express your ideas with courage and consideration, with the intent of finding the best possible alternative, the best possible solution, not simply to get credit for the best idea. And another, we may say, sweet fruit of personal and organizational integrity is relationships of trust with all stakeholders. You simply can't have integral relationships without genuine personal integrity. Many bottom-line business benefits, including competitiveness, flexibility, responsiveness, quality, economic value added, the customers and customer service, all of them depend on relationships of trust. And at bottom we can say, bottom line, only people with integrity are trustworthy. Only people with integrity are trustworthy. So let us remember that, try to remember that. So thank you very much for listening. We will have a third part also very soon. We continue with the corporate ethics program as a subtitle. And at the end we have a couple of applications and suggestions. So this will be in the next audio message.